How do I talk to somebody who may believe in evolution and doesn't believe that God created everything?
Miley, great question. Before I take that part to talk about if really God exists or not, okay, let's talk about the evolution first, because this is the easiest way or the easiest part, I would say. You know, in 1859, Darwin proposed that theory that everything through natural selection and by mutation, pieces or the species came mutually, gradually over time from a common ancestor and so on. And over time, gradually over time, we have what we have now. We have a big problem with that kind of macroevolution. And it's not just that we can discuss that evolution. Actually, we have evidence against that evolution. And before even I tell you why, I have 4 things. But basically, in 2016, the Royal Society of London, they called up for a meeting to discuss that Darwinian theory, basically suggesting that, guys, this doesn't work. We need to replace that theory because it doesn't work. It doesn't work for 4 reasons. If I take the acronym of LIFE, L-I-F-E, L. You know, before I talk about this, Darwin suggested that everything is gradually from a common ancestor being there by natural selection, just unguided, this is the proposal, unguided, mindless process that basically took place and had all what we see now existed from basically just natural selection and by mutation and guided process. L-I-F-E. L stands for limited capacity to change. So think of intelligent being like a breeder want to breed 2 genre of dogs, Labrador and Golden Retriever. At the end of the day, from these 2 genera, you're gonna get a dog still at the end. So you cannot get like an elephant. You can't get a human being. It's still, you're gonna have limited change. So if an intelligent who's limited to the change, how come I expect that non-intelligence, mindless, unguided process, to create or to have that kind of a new genre or a new species? Number 2, the I stands for irreducible complex. Dr. Michael B. did a great work on this, and I recommend that we read his books about this. Basically, he's saying that against Darwin, who's suggesting that everything over time gradually take place so we can see the species that we see, it doesn't work because it's completely irreducible complex. You need all the pieces to come together exactly at the same time in order to have an origin to take place. You can't have a part and gradually over time, now you have that part and over time you have a second part and then you have a third part. It doesn't work. You need all of the parts together, what we call irreducibly complex. Richard Dawkins was saying that even the eye was like a product of light-sensitive cells. That also doesn't work because the light-sensitive cells themselves, they are irreducibly complex. So you can't have just over time gradually things get created by unguided process over time. You need them all to exist at the same time. Number 3, the F, which is the fossil record. You know, the Cambrian explosion, big deal. Basically, Darwin is suggesting for the evolution theory that from a common ancestor, we come all the way to the human beings. The fossil record shows that the Cambrian explosion, it shows like an instant creation of all the species that we have. It happened instantly, again, not over time, not gradually. That took place around 530 million years ago when they found the science that found lots of species like animals, like birds, like plants, different species exactly happened and took place at the same time instantly. And Darwin himself, when he suggested his theory, he said, yeah, we know about this problem, but over time we're gonna find that fossil record that will show the in-between fossils. It has been almost 160 years now, since 1859, and we didn't find the fossil record. So it doesn't work. And the last one is the E, the epigenetic information. Basically, you have the 2 types of molecules, the one for DNA and the one for protein. The DNA molecules contains information that basically direct the construction of molecules of proteins. These molecules of protein contains amino acids. And that basically what tell the evidence to have the cell exist or to be alive. The cell depends on these molecules of protein in order for the cell to exist. And the protein's molecules get the information from the DNA, okay? Any change in the epigenetic information will have the cell to die. It doesn't exist. If you just change, think of a computer software, you have the zeros and ones. For a certain function, if you change anything in the zeros and ones, you degrade the function of that software. It doesn't work. LIFE, the theory of Darwin, doesn't work. Okay, so it cannot be through evolution, and even science. It didn't even open the Bible. That's just science. This is all just from science. Even the National Society of London, as I said, they even called for a meeting to change or replace that theory because it doesn't work. On the other hand, we have other evidence to show it's not a product of mindless, unguided process that gradually over time it took place. We have three main evidences. We have 9 of them, but I'm gonna just, because of the time, I'm gonna share only 3. That shows, no, this universe or this creation was a product of a mind. It's not just evolution and natural selection and by mutation and so on. Number 1 is the universe. Number 2 is the fine-tuning. Number 3 is the moral law. I'm gonna talk first about the universe, and there are 2 parts of the universe, okay? The DNA molecules and the information embedded in these DNA molecules. And the second one is the Big Bang. Maybe you heard that term, so I want to talk about this because I hear Christians are a bit afraid of using that term, but we shouldn't be. And I'm going to explain why. So the first one is the universe. And under the universe, we have 2 proofs that it came from an intelligent mind. And from a Christian perspective, we know that that intelligent mind was God. Like in the Bible, the first verse in Genesis 1, God created the heavens and the earth. Yes. So we know that who God is, okay? But let's talk outside of the Bible, just the universe. The first part of it, the information and the DNA molecule. Richard Dawkins, and I want to quote something from him, the famous atheist. He says, or he defines biology as, I quote, the study of complicated things that give the appearance of having been designed for a purpose. The appearance, kind of it's appearing to be designed, but it's not designed. Okay. Now, if I take just the DNA molecule, in 1953, Watson and Crick discovered the molecular biological discovery, amazing, of the DNA molecule. This is not the most fascinating thing. In 1957, 4 years after, Crick discovered the sequence hypothesis of the 4 chemical letters that called the bases. I know it sounds a bit biology and a bit tough, the terms, but this is really cool stuff. These sequential hypotheses, it's like, again, think of the zeros and ones in a computer software. These letters that stored in the DNA molecule that gives this information that in the DNA molecule direct the construction of the proteins molecules that contain amino acids in order for the cell to exist. Think of the protein molecules as like a toolbox. Dr. Stephen Meyer did a great job in that too. I recommend you read a lot of his work. Like you have in your toolbox a hammer, you have a screwdriver, you have different tools. Each of these tools do a function in order to construct a house, let's say. That's exactly what's happening in your body. That cell contains tons, trillions of cells. Each of these cells contains molecules of proteins, getting their information or their function from the information that's stored in the DNA molecules. Crick, in 1957, discovered there is not just information or chemical letters, these 4 letters, but it's also the sequence of these letters that give specific function, and any change of this sequence will degrade the function. Darwin's saying it's unguided process. Just mindless, unguided process that helped to have what we have. Really, the real question, where did the information come from? If we trace that back all the way to the function, it all depends on the information that's stored in these DNA molecules. Where did the information come from? Any computer software, we know there is a mind behind it, that we designed that software. When I build houses, I have to have a design. Any design has to have a designer. So back with the same concept, any information, it comes behind that information is a mind. And that's really the thing in that universe, to have all these species. God created the information in this DNA molecules in order to have these kind of cells exist. So that's the first one. And by the way, Bill Gates himself said that, and I quote, "Human DNA is like a computer program, but far more advanced than any we have ever created." And that's Bill Gates. Talk about the DNA and the complexity of it. Now, I want to, before I go to the second point under the universe, people in general, scientists, they base their results based on usually what a very well-known method, chance and necessity. Let's talk about the chance first, okay? Now, and compare this to the Darwinian thing. If you have a lock box, imagine you have a lock box. You know these lock boxes that when you sell a home, you put a lock box in your home so that, okay? You have 4 dials. Each dial of them have 10 digits, correct? Mm-hmm. Math. If I don't give, for example, Rund, I don't give her the code, these 4 digits that she have to enter so she can go inside the house. If she doesn't know that, okay, how many chances that she has to try in order to get that code correct? And suddenly by chance, she get the right number, the 4 digits. If you have 4 dials, which is a small lockbox, right? 10 digits. Mm-hmm. You have, it's not 4 times 10. It's 10 4 times, like 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. So this is like 10,000 trials. Okay, imagine for a bigger lockbox, not just 4 dials, but 10 dials. And each dial of these 10s have 10 digits. So 10 times. That's like 10 trillion. Right?
Yeah.
This is by chance. Okay, compare this to the DNA molecule and the information that's stored in it, and that sequential hypothesis that I was just saying, the result of the work of Crick. You know, the smallest protein, and that's a small one, that's in the cell. The smallest one of 10 sites, 20 amino acids. That's, with the math, is like 10 and you have 12 zeros after. That's a short protein. The ratio of functional to non-functional, listen to this, the ratio of functional to non-functional sequence is 1/10 to the 77th power. Put this into perspective because I know this is a bit challenging. If you look for the new functional sequence in 1 trillion galaxies, the size of the Milky Way, it's like you're looking for a needle in a haystack, for example. It's impossible. And we say, it's by chance, unguided process, just natural selection, mutation, undirected, unguided, mindless process will just pick and have these species. It's impossible. And even because scientists actually worked on the timing, on the math, but we have almost 13.8 billion years, what they estimate. Even with that time, which is a very long time, it's not enough time to get that. Imagine the lockbox one more time, to get that letters or these numbers correct in order for you to go inside the house. Even if you had all that time, you won't have enough time to get it by chance. It's impossible. And if we talk about necessity, which is the second method, here necessity, they mean by law, like the nature, the law. It doesn't also work because they found out scientifically there is no bond between the sequential hypothesis. These letters, the A's and the C's and the G's and the T's, that in the amino acids or the DNA molecules, there's no bond between them. They cannot just self-attract each other. There's no bond chemically. They cannot just get attracted and just form these sequence. I told you, we have to have a sequence in order for this, the DNA molecule to function and have a function to the protein so the cell can live. There's no bond between them. They cannot just get together somehow. Even think about any inscription in any stone or that iPad that has letters in it, or any wording that you see somehow on a door. It tells you there is a mind. These letters can come together and just form a word that you can understand if no mind behind it wrote these letters. Like a book, tons of letters, tons of phrases, tells me that there is a writer to that book. The letters didn't come just randomly, unguided process and just came together and formed the phrases. It's impossible. Right. So the number one, where the information come from? It came from a mind. Number two, the Big Bang. And this is really fun stuff. I really like this when I study it, okay? You know, Richard Dawkins, again, his famous quote, and I quote from him regarding the nature of the universe, okay? And I quote, "The universe we observe has precisely the properties we should expect. If there is, at bottom, no design, no purpose, no evil, and no good, nothing but a blind, pitiless indifference." Basically, just the materialism or the naturalism theory that everything came just from chemistry and energy, and that's it. Now, in 1924, that's not a long time ago, almost 100 years ago, okay? Edwin Hubble in California, with his telescope, he found a great discovery. He looked at the galaxies, and he discovered that the further the galaxies are, the more further, the faster they are. It's kind of like they are moving away, and very fast. So that told him there is an expansion to the universe. With the time, over time, the galaxy is going far, and the further they are, the faster they are. Listen to me, this is really cool, okay? This is in 1924. Now, we know from the law of gravity that Newton did, that basically the simple law of gravity that he discovered brilliantly. By the way, nobody knows what gravity is or what energy is. These laws doesn't explain gravity, by the way. It just tells you a mathematical equation that you can use so you can calculate things, which is very helpful, brilliant. But the gravity that he discovered, you drop an object, it falls, and his famous law of gravity, okay? Few years after, Einstein, he discovered the general of relativity, which is a theory of gravity, okay? What did he discover? That basically massive bodies curve the fabric of the space-time. Like, if you have a body, think of a trampoline. You know these trampolines, right? I have a lot with my kids when I play with them. And I like to be in the center, really, because I can jump them more. So, think of that trampoline when you have a mass heavy object and it turns, finally, at the end of the day, it's gonna go to the center of that trampoline, right? So it kind of makes like a curve in the fabric of the sphere, okay? Einstein discovered also that with that, the other bodies as well that are around, also they are in that kind of curve, and eventually all the bodies gonna come to a point in the center, exactly in the middle, in the center of that. So there's no space. But he discovered this is not the universe we live in, because we know there is a space between each galaxy and the other. It's not like all kind of going all the way and all kind of going to a single hole. This is not the universe we live at. So he said, okay, there must be another force that have these kind of objects, instead of all going down, there's an equivalent, and he called it the cosmological constant, another force that pull out these bodies back to its place. So basically the universe is static. So yes, they are going because of the gravity to that, they cause that kind of curvature, but because there is another cosmological constant equivalent to that force, pull these bodies back to its place, and therefore we live in that universe that we live at, therefore the universe is static, okay? Georges Lemaitre, another Belgian brilliant scientist, wasn't convinced much with that theory of Einstein. And he met him, and history says in 1927, they were talking together, Georges Lemaitre, that Belgian guy with Einstein, and he told him, I like your math, wonderful work, but the physics doesn't work. Just 4 years after, in 1931, Arthur Eddington, and I quote something from him about the origin of the universe. Himself, he said, philosophically, the notion of a beginning of the present order of nature is repugnant to me. I should like to find a genuine loophole. Himself wasn't a bit leaning towards a mind behind that. At the same time, he told Einstein, you have to go see Hubble, because he's seeing that the universe is not static as you suggested. He's seeing that the galaxies are moving, and they're moving fast, and it's kind of like the universe is expanding and it's not static. Very famously, picture. Einstein went to Hubble, and they have this picture, all of them in that picture, and 2 weeks after, he said the universe is not static. What's more even, I find more interesting, and I want to end with this, about this point. In 1960, Stephen Hawking himself, which is famously known being an atheist, he discovered that in his work for the PhD, the singularity theory, which basically saying that the universe being expanding, that's over time. So in regress of time, if we go back with time, that means the universe was kind of tight, getting tighter to a point that basically zero spatial volume. Like you come to a point at which what we called zero spatial volume. So in that zero spatial volume, when you don't have any space, what can you put in no space? Nothing. Nothing can fit in no space. So he's saying that definitely the universe had a beginning, and that's the word Big Bang came. It just tells that the universe had a beginning. And that's what we believe. We know who banged it, because that's what was in the Bible. In Genesis 1, God created the heaven and the earth.
Yeah.
So in going with these discoveries with Hubble and Einstein and all of this since 1924 with the telescope, with this theory of gravity, it just tells me that if we go back in time, it goes to a point that the universe had a start, and we just know who to start. It's a mind that started it. So under the universe, that's a big thing. The two other points really fast, the fine-tuning. If you have a car or you have any type of machine, you change the parts, right? It takes maintenance. It cannot just be like running. The earth has been running since the inception of the creation. And it runs like crazy. It runs like with speeds like crazy. In 3 circles, it runs around itself, just the earth, not the whole universe. The planet of the earth runs around itself, around in a straight line, and runs around the sun, okay? It maintains a constant distance between the earth and the moon, 238,000 miles, all the time. And any change of that will cause that basically will collapse. The average distance between stars is like 30 trillion miles. That distance is needed for the earth to exist. The expansion rate of the universe was different. If it was different by 1 part in 1,000 million a second after the Big Bang that we were just talking about, the universe was going to collapse. Or even life wasn't even possible to even have life in this universe. The precision of every ratio, like the tolerance, is almost zero. That tells me the fine-tuning, what we call, to have all these things in that universe managed by a mind to a point, it's unbelievable to be just unguided process. Naturally, mutually, over time, without any mind behind it. It tells me that there is a mind behind it. And the last one is the moral law. Now, think of all the cultures, all the society, all the human race, all the people that lived all over the earth in different, all their ethnic backgrounds, the times that they lived in, all their social differences, everything about the human race since the inception. For example, let's take Yusuf. When Yusuf lies, you know that you did something wrong. You know that lying is wrong. Same thing with Miley. If she killed someone without even having the Bible, internally, morally, she feels that there's something wrong she did. That's called the moral law. Now, I like to say natural laws are descriptive, but the moral laws are prescriptive. They prescribe things. Where these moral laws come from? It comes from a moral lawgiver. And that person, which we know it's God in our Christian worldview, must be transcendent to have all these kind of moral laws over all these kind of cultures and generations over time, have this embedded in each person. So this moral law, which actually Romans talk about, that's a true evidence that it came from someone being transcendent. I want to finish with this to prove that it's intelligent design. Stephen Hawking was saying, and I quote, because there is a law of like gravity, the universe can and will create itself from nothing. That by itself is self-contradictory, because there is a law of gravity, nothing, because there is something, nothing will happen. That's already a contradiction. You're assuming because there is something, nothing will come from it. It doesn't make sense. At the other side, C.S. Lewis said the opposite. Men became scientific because they expected law in nature, and they expected law in nature because they believed in a lawgiver. Same concept of the moral law. All these things, the universe, the fine-tuning of this universe, the moral law, and I have much more evidence, tells me that this universe is created by a mind, and it cannot be just by unguided process, by just evolution theory, that macroevolution. It cannot be. There is an intelligent mind behind this creation. And in the Christian worldview, we call him God. Exactly what took place in Genesis 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.